Some people say time flies. I think it just walks. Slow and steady, like an old man crossing the street. No rush, no panic, just a quiet shuffle from one chapter to the next. That's how it felt raising Jordan. I met him when he was 4. Tiny kid with curly hair and those big, cautious eyes that always seemed to be scanning the room before deciding if it was safe. His mom, Nina, had just moved back to town after a bad split with the boy's father, a name she never spoke out loud. We met at the grocery store, of all places. She was in the cereal aisle, looking overwhelmed and barely holding on to a crying toddler while comparing prices on name-brand Cheerios. I said something stupid like, "I hear the off-brand ones build character," and she laughed harder than the joke deserved. That was the first time I saw her really smile. A year later, we were living together. 2 years after that, we were married. And I became, for all practical purposes, Jordan's father. He didn't call me dad right away. Took a while, but I never pushed. I figured trust wasn't something you earned with words. It was built in the quiet stuff. Packing lunches, showing up to school plays, sitting by his hospital bed after a bad fall from a skateboard. When he was 9, I asked if he wanted to take my name. He said, "Only if you want to be my forever dad." So we did the paperwork. I signed where it mattered. Nina cried. Jordan hugged me and didn't let go. I thought that was the moment everything was real. Turns out, real doesn't mean permanent. Now he's 18. We just celebrated his birthday last weekend. Backyard barbecue. Just the 3 of us and a few of his friends. I grilled ribs. Nina made her usual pasta salad that no one ever finishes, but she insists on making anyway. Jordan smiled through most of it, took pictures with everyone, even hugged Nina in front of people, which is rare for a teenage boy. And I caught myself thinking, we did it. We really raised a good one. Later that night, after the guests left and the dishes were done, I was sitting out on the porch with a beer when Nina joined me. She didn't say much at first, just sat there, arms crossed, staring out at the dark like something out there was whispering her name. Finally, she said, "He's grown now." I nodded. "Yeah, we should be proud." She hesitated. "I think I'm done pretending." That made me turn. Pretending what? She didn't look at me. That we're still a couple. That this is still working. I took a long breath. "You saying you want a divorce?" She nodded, but it wasn't sad. If anything, she looked relieved. "I've met someone," she said. "Of course you have." I didn't say it out loud. Just sat there. Let her speak. "He's stable, financially successful, more ambitious than—" She stopped herself, like realizing that sentence wasn't going to land well. "Than me?" I finished for her. She didn't deny it. I took another sip of beer. It was warm now. "I think you always knew," she said quietly. I nodded again. "Yeah, I did." She finally turned to look at me. "You're not angry?" "No," I said. "I'm tired." She stared at me like she expected something more. Maybe a fight, maybe a plea. But I didn't give it to her. "I just didn't want to do this before his birthday," she added. I gave a dry laugh. "Thanks for the gift wrap." She stood. "I'll give you time to think." I already have. That night, I lay awake, not thinking about Nina, but about Jordan. About all the nights I stayed up with him during flu season. The science fair projects. The scraped knees and driving lessons and late-night talks after bad dates. He was my son, not by blood, but by choice. And choice, to me, always meant more. I thought about telling him right away, about warning him, but something told me to wait. Not out of fear, but strategy. The best way to handle this wasn't through reaction. It was through preparation. Because what Nina didn't know, what she never asked or seemed to care about, was that I'd been preparing for this for over a year. It started with a business card. Preston Hale. He left it on our kitchen counter 6 months ago, after dropping Nina off from some work meeting that went too long. I'd come home early and found them laughing in the driveway like high school kids. She said he was a client. Real estate investor, she claimed. Looking for vacation homes. But I saw the way he looked at her. And I saw how she didn't flinch when he touched her back. So I did some digging. Turns out, Preston wasn't just some high-rolling investor. He had 3 LLCs in 3 different states. 2 were dissolved for failure to pay taxes. 1 was under investigation for fraud. His social media was pristine, but fake. The kind of fake you build to impress women who crave status more than substance. I printed everything. Kept it in a folder labeled HVAC receipts in the garage. Nina never looked there. Then I visited a lawyer. Made sure the adoption was rock solid. Updated my will. Created a trust for Jordan, independent of Nina, with release triggers tied to age and academic milestones. I even talked to Jordan's college about direct tuition payments. Piece by piece, I built the exit plan. Not for me, for him. So when Nina stood there on the porch and said she was leaving, I wasn't shocked. I was ready. And for the first time in a long time, I felt light. Because the worst part wasn't losing her. It was realizing she'd never really stayed. The next morning, the house felt quieter than usual. Not empty, not tense. Just quiet in that way things get when everyone knows something's changed, but no one said it yet. Nina had already left for work by the time I made it downstairs. There was a note on the counter in her handwriting. Didn't want to make it awkward. Let's talk tonight. I stared at it for a second, then crumpled it and tossed it in the trash. Jordan came into the kitchen a few minutes later, still in sweats, yawning and rubbing the back of his neck like he hadn't quite woken up. Hey, he said. You make coffee? Already brewed. Mugs in the cabinet. He poured himself a cup and leaned against the counter, taking a sip. I watched him, taller than me now, broader in the shoulders, still awkward in the way teenage boys carry themselves when their bodies grow faster than their minds. But there was a calmness in him too. A center. I'd spent years building that with him. You all right? He asked. I raised an eyebrow. Why do you ask? You look like you didn't sleep. I didn't, I said simply. He waited for more, but didn't press. I need to tell you something, I added. That got his attention. He set the mug down and stood straighter. It's about your mom. His face twitched, just slightly. He was expecting bad news, or at least something serious. She told me last night that she's leaving, I said. Jordan blinked. Leaving like moving out. Divorcing. Says she's met someone. He didn't respond right away. His mouth opened, then shut again. After a long silence, he said, You okay? I nodded. Yeah. It wasn't a surprise. Jordan swallowed hard. She didn't say anything to me. She will. Probably soon. But I didn't want you hearing it from someone else first. He looked away. I don't even know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know you've got a place here. That doesn't change. He turned back to me. I'm not going anywhere. I felt something tighten in my chest, in a good way. I know, I said. He stared into his coffee for a long time before finally murmuring, Is it that guy Preston? So he had noticed. Yeah, I said. I think so. Jordan gave a bitter half-laugh. I figured. I saw his name pop up on her phone a lot. Figured it was business. It probably started that way, I said. Then turned into something else. He looked like he was trying to be grown about it. Trying to process it the way he thought a man should. But there was a flicker of hurt behind his eyes that I recognized. You're still my dad, he said quietly. I nodded. Always. He didn't hug me. Didn't need to. The words were enough. Later that day, I went to the bank. The trust for Jordan had already been set up months ago, but now I adjusted the conditions slightly. Made sure no one but him and I had access. If anything happened to me, he'd be fully covered. Tuition, housing, living expenses. Nina's name was nowhere on it. Then I called my lawyer. Told him yet, she asked. Told the boy. Not her. You want me to get started on papers? Yeah, I said. Quietly. I want everything ready before she thinks to ask. You planning to fight for anything specific? No. Just what's mine. And what's his? She paused. You're a better man than most. I'm just tired of lies. That evening, Nina came home like nothing happened. She dropped her purse on the table, kicked off her heels, and poured herself a glass of wine. I was sitting in the den, reading. She stood in the doorway like she wasn't sure whether she was allowed to speak. You told him? She asked. Yeah, I said. This morning. She nodded slowly. How did he take it? He's not stupid, Nina. I never said he was. But you acted like he wouldn't notice. Like this could be clean. She sighed. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. That's funny, I said, not looking up. Because it's happening exactly how you planned. She walked farther into the room. Calvin, I'm not angry, I said. You've already done what you came to do. I'm just asking you not to pretend like this is a mutual decision. You made your choice. She stayed quiet, probably expecting a fight. A scene. Some kind of explosion she could use to justify walking away. But I didn't give her that. Instead, I stood, walked past her, and said, We'll talk when the paperwork's ready. The next few days passed in fragments. Nina started packing things, but not in a hurry. She wanted it to feel slow, deliberate, like some thoughtful transition instead of what it was, a retreat. Jordan kept his distance from her. He wasn't cruel, just quiet. He spoke when spoken to, but didn't initiate conversation. I could tell it was bothering her. He won't even look at me, she said one night. Maybe he's thinking, I said. You told him everything he knew was temporary. She opened her mouth to reply, then closed it again. Some part of her must have known she had no defense. Then, 2 nights later, I saw Preston. He was parked outside in a sleek gray BMW, windows down, sunglasses on even though the sun was setting. Nina walked out with a suitcase, kissed me on the cheek like we were old co-workers parting ways, and got into the car. Preston nodded at me once, smug. I smiled back. He thought he'd won something. He didn't know I'd already taken away the prize. When they drove off, Jordan came out from the side of the house. He watched the car disappear around the corner. You still have that folder? He asked. What folder? The one you labeled HVAC receipts. I saw you hide something in there last month. Smart kid. Yeah, I said. Want to see what's in it? He nodded. We went into the garage, and I pulled out the folder. Thick, clipped, organized. Business filings, credit checks, lawsuits, names and dates. A timeline of Preston Hale's scams, arrests, and connections. Jordan flipped through the first few pages in silence. You really did your homework, he said. I've been watching people longer than your mom's been trying to impress them. He chuckled once, then grew serious. What are you going to do with it? I don't have to do anything, I said. I already sent a copy to his last 2 clients. One of them is pressing charges. Jordan looked at me, eyes wide. I'm not out for revenge, I said. But I don't let snakes into my yard twice. He nodded, slowly. Want to grab dinner? I asked. Yeah, he said. Let's go somewhere with pie. 2 weeks passed. Nina moved in with Preston. Or at least, that was the official version. I knew she didn't tell many people yet. Not her friends. Not her co-workers. She wanted to control the narrative. Make it look clean. Mature. Like she and I had grown apart. Like Preston had come along after, not before. But the town was small, and eyes were everywhere. Word traveled faster than anyone could manage. It wasn't long before I overheard her name in the hardware store, on a church bulletin board, at the diner I went to for coffee. People didn't ask me questions directly. They just gave me those tight, sympathetic nods like I was the last one to find out something everyone already knew. I let them, because I knew something they didn't. I still had the house. Not just legally. Emotionally. The furniture. The photos. The memories. The kitchen where Jordan first baked cookies so bad we had to scrape the tray with a chisel. The wall by the stairs with the little pencil marks where we measured his height each year. The garage where I taught him how to rotate tires and check brake fluid. These things didn't belong to Nina. She'd stopped being part of them years ago. She just hadn't noticed. One afternoon, Jordan came home from class and tossed his backpack on the couch. She texted me, he said. I looked up from the paperwork on the dining table. And she wants to meet up. Just to talk. I nodded. You want to? He hesitated. Not really. But I probably should. You don't owe her anything, I said. But you won't regret being the bigger man. He gave a tired smile. I learned that from you. He met her at a coffee shop the next day. I didn't ask how it went. He didn't offer much. Just came home, went to his room, and put on music loud enough to block out the world. Later, he handed me his phone. She sent me this. It was a screenshot. A long message she'd sent him after their talk. Paragraphs of emotional language. I never stopped loving you. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. But there was something else. A line buried halfway through. Your stepfather made things very difficult. I needed more, and he couldn't give it. That was the moment I knew. She wasn't done trying to control the story. She couldn't just leave. She had to be right about it. Had to make me the reason. I looked at Jordan. You okay? He nodded. She's trying to make me pick sides. You don't have to. I know. But I already did. That weekend, I got a call from one of Nina's colleagues, Angela, a realtor in the same agency. Hey, Calvin, she said. I didn't mean to get in the middle of anything, but Nina asked me something weird today. Okay. She wanted to know if your name was still on the deed. It is. She said you guys talked about her buying you out. Nope. Angela exhaled through the phone. Thought so. Just wanted to let you know. She's asking around. Appreciate the heads up. I hung up and sat still for a while. Nina had underestimated me. She thought I'd be passive. That I'd roll over, let her keep the house, and move on like a good little footnote in her next chapter. But the house had always been mine. She didn't pay the down payment. Never made a mortgage payment. Didn't even know where the water shutoff valve was. I'd built the workshop. rewired the breaker box, laid tile in the bathroom with my own hands. And now she wanted to buy me out of something she never built? That wasn't going to happen. The next day, my lawyer filed the paperwork. No negotiation. We were claiming full ownership of the house based on sole payment records and physical contributions. We attached receipts, bank statements, before and after renovation photos, and copies of building permits under my name. Legally, it was a fortress. Emotionally, it was justice. Later that night, I got another text from Jordan. Jordan, she's asking if she can come by to get her winter coats. Me, tell her I'll leave them on the porch. Jordan, she says she wants to come in. Me, she can't. Not without notice. Not without you here. And not without me present. Jordan, understood. She showed up 3 days later in Preston's car. He stayed behind the wheel, engine running, sunglasses on again like he thought they made him invisible. Nina walked up the steps like she still belonged there. I met her at the door with a plastic storage bin full of coats, scarves, and boots. She gave me a flat smile. You really going to do this through Tupperware? You wanted your things, I said. Here they are. I raised a son in this house. So did I. Her smile faltered. I thought we could be civil about this, she added. We are being civil. You asked. I packed. No drama. She glanced past me into the house, like she wanted one last glimpse. Did Jordan tell you what I said? He did. She looked down. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did, I said. You always mean it like that. And then you try to soften it after the damage is done. She stared at me, jaw tight. You think you're better than me, don't you? No, I said calmly. I just think I stopped pretending. She didn't respond. Just took the bin, walked back down the steps, and got in the car. Preston didn't look at me. Just hit the gas like he was in a race. Let him run, I thought. Let them both run. The truth doesn't chase anyone, but it always catches up. That night, Jordan came into the living room while I was watching an old baseball game. He sat on the floor, back against the couch, same way he used to when he was 12. I thought she might say sorry, he said. Did she? No. She said you were turning me against her. I nodded slowly. That's what people say when they lose control. He picked at a loose thread on his jeans. You're not turning me against anyone. I know. He turned to look at me. You really okay with her just being gone? I've been okay for a while, I said. I was just waiting for the moment to make it real. He sat in silence for a while. Then, almost under his breath, he said, I don't think I'll ever call her again. You don't have to decide that now. I think I already have. It started with a voicemail from Preston's ex-business partner, a guy named Derek Niles. I didn't know him personally, but I'd seen his name when I was putting together the research file. He was listed in one of the LLC dissolutions, the kind of name that shows up in court filings, but rarely on social media. Hey, the message began, his voice uncertain, like he wasn't sure if I'd even pick up. I heard you're the guy that sent my wife the docs on Preston. Just wanted to say thanks. We're finally getting clarity on some things. And, you might want to keep an eye on the guy. He's slick, but he's slipping. I saved the message. Didn't need it right away, but I knew it might be useful. Later that day, I got an email from a woman named Lydia, another former client of Preston's. She wrote 4 paragraphs, politely but firmly asking if I'd be willing to share any documentation that may pertain to Mr. Hale's real estate conduct. I forwarded her everything, not out of spite, just out of principle. She wasn't asking for revenge. She was asking for facts. The truth, when documented, stops being personal. It becomes public record. The following week, I heard from Jordan that Nina was stressed out. She tried to reach him again, asking him to come over for dinner. He declined, told her he had work to do. She pushed. He didn't budge. Eventually, she sent him a message that just said, "It's getting hard over here." He showed it to me like he was trying to read between the lines. I told him not to. The lines were clear. She made her choice, I said. Now she's learning what it costs. We didn't say more after that. Some lessons don't need extra dialogue. A few days later, I got a knock at the door around 8 at night. I'd just finished cleaning the kitchen and was setting out 2 plates. Jordan was bringing home takeout. It wasn't Jordan. It was Preston. He was alone, still dressed like a finance guy, but the details were starting to slip. Shirt wrinkled, eyes tired, hair not quite styled right. I didn't invite him in. He stood on the porch like he was trying to summon the confidence he usually faked so easily. I came to talk, he said. Then talk. He shifted. You've been spreading things about me. No, I said. I've been sharing things. Documents. Public records. Nothing I said was opinion. You've cost me deals. No, I said again. You cost yourself those deals. I just showed people the receipt. He looked past me, like hoping for backup. But the house was quiet. I'm not trying to start anything, he said. But Nina's upset. She's saying you poisoned your kid against her. That he won't even talk to her now. She did that all on her own. Preston's jaw tightened. He's 18. He doesn't get to act like a child. He gets to decide who earns a place in his life, I replied. That's the thing about growing up. He took a step forward. I didn't move. I'm not scared of you, he said. You should be scared of losing every name on your contact list. Because when people start closing doors on you, they don't knock again. For a second, I thought he might try to argue, to posture. But instead, he stood there, breathing hard. Then, like something let go inside him, he muttered, She told me you wouldn't fight back. That you were tame. I gave a dry chuckle. She never understood the difference between being kind and being soft. He left without another word. Jordan came home 10 minutes later. He saw the second plate and grinned. Good timing, he said. Smells like Chinese? I nodded. You just missed a guest. He raised an eyebrow. Let me guess. Mr. Investment Portfolio. Yep. He's learning about diminishing returns. We ate on the porch, watching the last of the evening light fade over the backyard. I could see the pencil marks on the fence where Jordan and I used to draw strike zones for baseball. They were fading, but still there. After dinner, he pulled out his laptop and started on homework. I cleaned up and sat back with a book, not really reading, just holding it while my thoughts drifted. I thought about the way Nina used to look at me early on. Back when things were simpler. When we had less, but everything felt more honest. When she didn't need to impress anyone. When I was enough. But that version of her disappeared a long time ago. Maybe not suddenly. Maybe like how erosion works. Little by little, until the edges are gone and no one notices they're standing on nothing. I thought I'd mourn her. But I didn't. I was mourning the time. The effort. The belief. And I realized I wasn't sad anymore. I was clear. A few days later, her attorney called. Polite. Professional. Asked if I'd consider amicable division of assets, specifically the house. I believe Miss Caldwell has emotional investment in the property, he said. I waited for him to finish. Then I said, she left. She gave up the right to sentiment when she walked away with another man. The house isn't up for negotiation. He paused. There may be avenues. Let me stop you there, I said. She can pursue whatever legal path she wants. I'm not blocking her, but I'm also not giving an inch. The call ended shortly after. I sent the transcript to my lawyer, who simply replied, exactly what I hoped you'd say. It wasn't about holding onto a building. It was about holding onto dignity. She had turned love into leverage. I'd turned memory into armor. And now, as the dust settled, all the pieces she'd scattered began to fall into place, but not for her. For me. And for Jordan. That weekend, Jordan told me he was thinking about changing his last name officially on all his records. I wanted to say Mercer on everything, he said. Not just the adoption papers. You don't have to, I said. Name doesn't make the bond. I know, he said, but it makes it clear. We made an appointment for the following week. As I watched him walk into the DMV, tall and sure of himself, I realized something simple and solid. She thought she had raised him with me as a helper. She was wrong. I raised him while she looked away. Now he was choosing who to carry forward. And he wasn't choosing her. He was choosing truth. He was choosing calm. He was choosing me. And I didn't need to win anything. Because I already had. The morning the name change paperwork came through, Jordan didn't say much. Just opened the envelope at the kitchen table, read it silently, and then placed the paper down like it was heavier than it looked. His hands were steady. His eyes, even more so. I asked, you want to frame it? He smirked. Not really. I just want to carry it. You already were. He nodded once. That was enough. The moment didn't need balloons or a celebration. It wasn't about fanfare. It was about something deeper. About ownership. About choosing who you are, on purpose. That afternoon, Nina called again. Not Jordan, me this time. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. Hello. She was quiet for a second, then said, he changed his name. Yeah. You let him. I didn't let him. He's 18. He decided. She sighed. I just thought. I mean, after everything I did for him. You were his mother, I said. That was the job. Same as it was mine. Calvin, she said, I know you hate me right now, but... I don't hate you. I cut in. That would take too much energy. I've already spent everything I had. She paused. I made mistakes. But you didn't have to make me the bad guy. You did that yourself. I was overwhelmed. I didn't plan for this to happen. Yes, you did, I said calmly. You just didn't plan on being caught. You wanted to leave the story, but still control the ending. That's not how life works. She didn't argue. Not really. Just went quiet again. I miss him, she said. Then write him a letter. Maybe don't text. Maybe don't ask him to fix how you feel. She exhaled sharply, like the truth was something she bit down on before it could choke her. I'm leaving Preston, she said. I didn't respond. He lied to me about some deal. Took money from my personal account, without asking. He said he'd pay it back, but now he won't answer his phone. I could have told you that, I said. You did tell me. Another silence. I should have listened. Should have a long time ago. So that's it, she asked. You're just done? Yes, I said. She hung up first. I stood in the quiet of the kitchen afterward, watching the light come through the window, and I didn't feel relief or regret. I just felt still, like the house had finally stopped echoing. Later that week, I got a notice from the court. Nina's request for a partial property claim had been officially denied. My lawyer called the next morning, trying not to sound too smug. Airtight case, she said. They didn't even hesitate. She gonna appeal? Doesn't look like it. She missed the deadline. Good. One less loose end. Jordan came home that evening holding a thin manila envelope and said, Mom sent me something. I nodded. You read it? Yeah. What did it say? He thought about it. She's sorry. Says she wasn't thinking straight. That she let herself believe the wrong people. That you were always good to both of us. I waited. She asked if I could forgive her. And he shrugged. I don't know. I'm not mad anymore. But I don't want to go back. You don't have to. She said maybe one day we can be close again. I didn't say anything. Just let him talk. I don't hate her, he added. But I don't trust her either. And I don't think I ever will. That's fair. He looked at me. Is that how you feel too? I feel like some people teach you how far not to follow them. Jordan smiled a little. You always talk like that. I laughed. Only when I mean it. That weekend, I finally cleared the closet in the spare room. Nina's old stuff was still boxed up in the corner, gathering dust like it was waiting for someone to come back and finish the scene. I opened one box, found some old photo albums, a stack of cards we used to leave each other early in the marriage. Most were generic. A few had handwritten notes that felt like reading letters from ghosts. I took out a single photo, one of the three of us at a county fair. Jordan, maybe 7 years old, cotton candy all over his mouth, Nina laughing, me holding him on my shoulders. We looked like a real family, and we were, for a while. But real doesn't always mean forever. I put the photo in a drawer. The rest of the box I sealed shut and carried to the garage. Jordan helped without asking. When we were done, he looked at the clean shelf and said, Looks better this way. Lighter, I agreed. He nodded, like we made space for something else. Exactly. That night, he left to meet friends. I sat out back under the porch light, sipping tea instead of beer this time. No need to dull anything anymore. I wasn't trying to forget. I was trying to remember things clearly. Like how peace doesn't come all at once. It arrives in pieces. Quiet mornings. Clean shelves. A son who chooses to stay. And silence where there used to be arguments. People talk about healing like it's a mountain you climb and plant a flag on. But I think healing is a long walk on a flat road. No fanfare. Just progress. Step by step. Sometimes alone. Sometimes not. And somewhere along that road, you realize you're already free. Fall came early that year. The mornings were crisp, the kind where you see your breath before you get to your car. Leaves were starting to blanket the lawn in that slow, satisfying way, like the world was shrugging off its own weight. Jordan had settled into college routines, commuting a few days a week, working part-time at the garage with me on weekends. He still lived at home for now, said he'd rather save for something that was his, not just jump into some overpriced apartment to prove he was grown. I liked having him around. He made coffee too strong and sometimes forgot to unload the dishwasher, but he never complained when I asked for help and always said goodnight before bed. I'd take that kind of quiet presence over noise any day. We didn't talk about Nina much anymore. Not because it was off limits, just because there wasn't much left to say. She had faded from our everyday life the way someone fades from a dream once the sun hits your face. You don't hate them. You just stop needing them there. One Saturday, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. The handwriting on the front was unfamiliar, blocky, careful. Inside, a folded piece of paper. Short. For lines. I thought you should know. Preston's being investigated again. He took money from my sister. I found your file online. Thank you for warning us. I'm sorry it had to be like this. No signature. Didn't need one. I set the paper down and didn't think much else about it. The world has its own way of settling accounts. And I was no longer the one keeping the ledger. That same week, I finally took down the last of Nina's old decor from the hallway. The framed quote she bought years ago that said, "Love is what makes a house a home." I replaced it with a photo Jordan had taken during a camping trip we did 2 summers ago. Just trees, a lake, and a fire pit. But it felt like ours. Honest. No performance, no caption. Just real light on real things. Somewhere in the back of the closet, I still had a few boxes labeled with her name. Jordan asked once if I was going to ship them. I told him, when someone walks away, they pack their own bags. If she wants them, she knows where the door is. He nodded. Didn't ask again. By then, Nina had stopped contacting him. The messages had gone from long and emotional to short and vague. Then came the guilt-laced ones. Then the silence. Jordan didn't block her. He just stopped replying. The last message he got from her said, "Maybe one day you'll understand why I had to do what I did." He never answered. He didn't need to. Some questions don't deserve responses. One evening, I came home to find him in the backyard, building something out of old wood scraps. Nothing fancy, just a raised platform for the grill. He'd measured everything, leveled it out, even countersunk the screws. I watched him for a minute before asking, "You want to design the whole patio next spring?" He smiled. "Yeah, I was thinking maybe we had a pergola. Make it feel like a real spot." "You've got good instincts," I said. He paused. "Got them from you." We didn't say anything after that. Just stood side by side, watching the sky dim. That night, I sat on the porch long after he went to bed, thinking about how endings work. People always want them to be cinematic, explosive, symbolic. But the truth is, most endings are just a quiet click. A door shutting behind someone. And then nothing. You look around and realize you're still standing. Still breathing. Still here. And if you've done it right, if you've kept your dignity intact, you don't carry the sound of that door with you. You just move forward. I didn't know what Nina was doing now. Didn't care. Preston had likely moved on to another city, another woman, another scheme. That's the nature of people like him. They don't change. They just relocate. But that wasn't my concern anymore. I had a son with my name on his documents. A foundation built with my hands. And a peace that didn't rely on anyone else's permission. One Sunday morning, I made coffee and pancakes while Jordan slept in. No big occasion. No guest. Just a good day. As I flipped the last pancake, I looked around the kitchen. It looked different now. Not because anything had changed physically, but because the weight in the air had lifted. This was a house without ghosts. A home made by choice, not by accident. Jordan eventually wandered in, rubbing his eyes and sniffing the air like a bloodhound. "You cooked." "Felt like it." He grinned. "Smells better than a protein bar." We ate in comfortable silence. When he was done, he pushed his plate forward and leaned back. "I was thinking," he said, "maybe I'll apply for that scholarship next semester. The one for trade school students. Sounds like a good plan. I want to keep building stuff. Not just for a paycheck. I want to make things that stay. You already are." He looked at me like he wanted to say something else. Then didn't. Just nodded. Sometimes love sounds like silence. Like a boy eating pancakes in the kitchen his father built. Like a man who has nothing left to prove, finally breathing in peace. No applause. No final words. Just light. And space. And forward.